Okay, give me just a few minutes. I got some things to get all set up here, including my camera settings. There we go. Let's tilt this down a little bit. And then we pop out the chat. And gadoosh. And as we see tonight's sculpt. Hello, Carlton. Tonight's sculpt is going to be a Dragonborn barbarian. In many ways, he'll probably be very similar to the human barbarian, except this time the scales will be on the Barbie, not on the cloak. Yes. So, I'm waiting for the person I'm actually sculpting this for, is one of the people in my Saturday game, to show up and make some kind of comments in the chat so I can discuss with him about his figure. I've got to put you down on the floor, okay? There you go. Now, part of the intent for the figures for this particular run is that I'll be making two versions. When I print them, that is. I'll be printing one normal size, which would be the same size that I'll be putting up on Thingiverse. And I'll be printing a double-sized figure that you can put, that they can put, next to their character sheet or whatever, so we can just glance around and see, oh yeah, he's playing the Dragonborn in this game. So, it'll also probably be easier to paint for people who aren't used to painting if they decide to paint it. Before we get started, two things. Carlton. Number one, today is specifically for recognizing and being awareness for PTSD. As a former active duty U.S. Marine who was never unlucky enough to end up in combat, I don't have PTSD. I was never given such a traumatic experience. But I served with people that did. And many people who served after me suffer from it. And non-military folk can suffer from it as well. It doesn't require combat to suffer PTSD. It requires a trauma. For example, paramedics have probably the highest amount of PTSD in the emergency services. Got you down now. And even ordinary folk who have had a traumatic experience. I'm putting you down. People who suffered abuse in childhood. People who were... in general, if just any kind of trauma can trigger PTSD. Just be aware, it's not just, what are you doing? Not just military folk. Everyone can suffer from it. Yeah. Anyway. So. That's that. Also, I have an announcement, and that's tomorrow night's episode. Yes, tomorrow night. I will be broadcasting, and it will not be a normal episode. Instead, I'm going to have a couple of guests. Mia Benston and Miguel Zavela, aka MZ4250, are going to be here. And we're going to discuss growth as an artist, where we were, how we got here, and what we still need to work on that we know about, and go on. Tips and tricks that we've learned along the way, other factors. Carlton, let me do my show. Go. So, like I said, now I'm waiting on my buddy to show up. And he just sent me, yeah, what time? Now. Oh. But yeah. So tonight's going to be a Dragonborn barbarian with a big ol' axe instead of a human barbarian with a big ol' axe. So, I'm going to repeat the announcement about tomorrow night later on in the show when I've got more people actually watching. But for those who are watching after the fact, just remember, like, subscribe, bell icon, the usual, and the Anycubic Photon. There, you can see it a little bit better. Amazing with miniatures. Okay, so when he shows up and speaks in the chat, then I'll be getting ready to get going on his figure. Meanwhile, there are figures scheduled for this weekend, this Sunday. There are plans in the works. I am still working on the Forgotten Empires. Forgotten Empires is going to be... It's going to take a little while, because it's a lot of work that I gotta... And I've got to make sure I've got a lot of the product ready to go when I start, with time to fill in the rest of the product, which includes what I estimate I will probably get on the stretch goals, and also have time to work on what I might get and finish all the stretch goals. So it'll be just a little bit longer before I can get that one going. Now, if anyone wants to say hello or any kind of comments about the fact that Carlton wouldn't leave me alone at the beginning of the show, go right ahead. And like I said, Robert, if you're here, if you're in the chat, say something, type something, woobity woobity woobity. Because I'm going to ask you questions about your character as I sculpt. So, anyway, I posted this earlier in the week. On the left, well, your left, is the Yeho Game Ink, yellow. On your right is Warcolor's yellow ink. Now you'll notice one is a lot more opaque than the other. Ink should not be opaque. This is so much better for, like, glazes and things like that, because it will change the color without, or change the hue without blocking the shading you've already done. Now, this might work better as a glaze or as a highlight glaze, but while opaque is good for dark inks, like your like, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like Nuln Oil. Oh, where is Nuln Oil? Oh, it's over there. Okay, like Nuln Oil, where it's to darken and get into those crevices and darken those crevices. It's not great for the inks that you usually use for, glazing, like bright red. Yet again, opaque. Whereas transparent. Or in this case, magenta. Also a reddish color. I mean, yeah. And yes, I do have some of these Citadel contrast colors now. And I stand by what I said. Having used them, I stand by what I said when I first saw them come out. Number one, they will replace techniques. Hello, Mark! But number one, they will replace a technique, but not skill. Number two, they will be an easy way to get your entire Space Marine chapter, have a basic base coat and shade of this light blue or whatever, and then you go back in and detail it with the regular paints. Mark, you weren't here for the very beginning of the show. You didn't hear. Tomorrow night there will be a show. Myself, Mia Bensian, and Ralph. You saw your brother do it, so you had to do it, huh? Anyway, myself, Mia Bensian, and Miguel Zavela, we're going to do a roundtable about sculpting miniatures and growing as an artist. We also might have a couple others who will show up, I'm not certain. Crazy cat. Yes. Anyway, and as noted tonight, we're doing a Dragonborn Barbarian once the guy who I'm sculpting it for shows up in the chat. The reason I do this is because, normally I have my chat over to the left instead of down below. Ralph? Are you going to be sitting back there purring the whole show, or no, you're not? Are you going to climb down, or are you going to just flop yourself? He's just flopping himself. I'm getting ready to put you on the floor, Furball. Buzz Bud? What do you get? No. Whee! Down. Now shoo, Fuzzbutt. Anyway. There's been a couple other sculptors that were also invited I haven't heard back from, such as Black Omen, who often sculpts online and is very active in the r/printed minis subreddit, and a couple others that I've talked to on Discord. But for right now, it's looking like it's going to be just me, Mia, and Miguel. Okay, still waiting on the person I'm supposed to be doing this with. And, yeah. Still no word. Anyway, I was discussing some of the newer paints that I've got. And of course, you still got the old standbys, the Vallejo, the Army Painter, and the I will admit to using some of the technical paints from Citadel, but I still have a problem with their pots, and I do not like their pots. That's why I don't have very many of them to begin with. Oh, itch. Now, if you have questions for myself or Mia or Miguel, think about them before tomorrow. It'll be about 8 o'clock Central Time, which means 24 hours and 15 minutes from now. Yeah. And it'll be mostly like, a hangout type situation with y'all's chat as, something that we'll be able to read and react to. Yeah, battery. Stupid batteries. And when Robert gets in here, we'll be able to start work on his Dragonborn Barbarian. No. No, Furball. Crazy, insane kitty. I swear. But, I also gave a little discussion at the start of the show about today is PTSD awareness. And, be aware that it's not just for the military. Anyone who suffers trauma can have PTSD. So, while we're waiting, do you have anything that you would like to ask, Mark? Do you have ideas for what you want to say tomorrow night if you pop in? All right. Anyway, mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't have to be military. It doesn't have to be emergency services. Anyone can have PTSD. And a trigger isn't something that makes you angry. A trigger is something that actually triggers the full-blown PTSD attack. And that's what it is. It's an attack on all of your nervous system from inside itself. As something clicks that reminds the person of the traumatic experience, and the memories involved just overwhelm them. So, let me get a soda ready because I'm probably going to need to replace that one before this sculpt is over. I, for one, don't use ZBrush to make my weapons and accessories. I use a 3D modeler. In my case, it's 3D Studio Max. You could use Blender or any number of other programs like that. Anything that can make geometry can make accessories and weapons and other props. But yeah, we're waiting on Robert. And yeah. Still waiting on him. We have 5 people watching as we wait on the person to show up so I can sculpt their miniature. Yay! Polygroups. They're kind of funky. Okay, he's on. He hasn't said anything, but he's on. Okay. I think it'd probably be a good idea for us to discuss polygroups tomorrow night. The easiest way to explain them is normally, like, when I bring something in from ZBrush, all of the individual bone sections are a separate group. Even after I've given it a Dynamesh, it retains that group information. But as you'll see later tonight, there's an option to create polygroups by what's called connecting. No. By what's called, connecting geometry. Or by mapping, but we won't get into that. Okay. Okay, apparently the person involved is, he's watching, but he's not able to get into the chat. So, let me go ahead and pull out the phone. Okay, and burr. Okay, so we're going to use this instead. Just use to respond to questions. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to start off. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Daz Studio. And here we have our basic figure. One of the things we're going to do is we've got to go ahead and turn off Smooth Torso and turn on Dragonborn. There. Okay. Now, unlike most Dragonborn, this particular Dragonborn has a tail. So, we're going to pull up this tail. We're going to shrink it a little bit because it's a little large for Dragonborn. It was intended for lizard folk. And then we're going to translate. And then we're going to parent this to the hip. Okay. Now, Robert, first things first, your axe. There's several different kinds of great axes. There's the Lochaber axe, there's the Baradish, there's the Bipenis, which is the two-headed axe. There's the Dane axe, which is just simply a very large single-bladed two-handed axe. Which sort do you want for your beastie? Double-bladed, just like the last one we made. Okay, so that'll be Great Axe. Oh, I forgot to select him. Great Axe. Okay, next question is also we need to kind of make sure to shrink the head a little bit because it is a little large. Make that 95%. Okay, now what type of Dragonborn is he? In other words, what species of dragon is he part? That's to get the head horns done right. And while you're answering, I'm gonna also get up the other mobile device I have so I can do a quick Google image search without, getting it all on here. Robert, what species of Dragonborn is he? What color? What is he? Red, blue, gold? That sort of thing. Blue. Okay. So I'm gonna just get some drag it up to here and start Google image searching for blue dragon just to see the horn structure. But I believe blue dragons have a big snout horn. Yeah, big snout horn and fanned ears. So what we're going to do for that, we're going to do the snout horn in sculpting. And for the fan ears, there we go. There. Okay. Now, finally, what culture is he? Is he like Celtic? Is he Norse? Is he a Hun? Is he Conan? Even though Conan was never any form of particular culture. I mean, would he wear a kilt? Would he wear, that sort of thing? And he's answering. It helps with more than just what he wears. It helps with how to decorate it, how to design it, that sort of thing. Oh, okay, so more like a Cossack. So he has a tunic. He's not just a bare-chested, ruffle-wearing dragon. He's actually got a tunic on. He's got boots, probably fur-cuffed. Where is it? Yeah. The fur-cuffed boots I've just added here. Okay. What we add that. And we actually do go back in and under parameters for the male, we turn smooth torso on. Because he's going to be wearing a tunic. Oh, bare-chested? Okay, we're getting very far away from anything Norse or Russian. Because no human being wore bare chest in that area, and you're not a cold-based Dragonborn. Okay, one thing I'm going to do is take this one tail and rotate it a bit. No, wrong way. Okay. Okay. So he's more Celtic than Norse if he's bare-chested. Let's see. Next up would be pose. What pose do you want to be? Let me parent these horns. How do you want them standing? How do you want them posed? That sort of thing. Yeah, you're a barbarian. You got no armor. Fighting pose. Okay. There's a whole lot of possibilities here. One is he's charging forward with the axe behind him. One is he's rearing back, getting ready for a big overhand chop. Another is he's swinging it out in front of him, having already chopped. There's all sorts of. Okay, so swinging out in front of him, having already chopped. Okay. So what we're going to do for this is, because of the size of the axe, he's going to be slightly leaning back. His torso's twisted. I'm going to have to stand to feel how the joints are when I'm in that pose. So, let's see. Alright. So the hips twist and rotate back. And he's kicked back like that. Okay. Alright. So we're going to rotate the hips back a little bit. I'm going to twist this way. Up! Carlton? What are you doing, little crazy butt? You haven't come by for a couple episodes, so you decided to come by 5 times in the first half hour of this one. Okay. Down you go. Alright, so let me double check on that. Let's see. Okay, it's rocking back. Okay, so the back leg, it is rocked down slightly. And then we're going to rotate it that way. And bring it back just a little. And there we go. Now, left-hand view. Make sure we get it good. Okay. Rotate the foot a little bit like that. And then... and Control D to drop to the ground. Okay. Now, we're going to pin the hip. Translation and rotation. Grab the foot. Well, grab the shin and turn off side to side. Grab this foot. And we're going to drag it down. And then bend the toe just to make sure we're getting it. And rotate the toe. Now, I told Alex last night, but I haven't told you yet, Robert. And there's going to be 2 prints of each of these figures. And what that is one of them is going to be, standard 28mm size. The other is going to be double-sized, so that we can have them next to the characters. Just as like a little quick oh yeah, you're playing a Dragonborn this time, and you're playing a halfling, and wait a minute, what is that supposed to be? You know, that kind of thing. Okay. Okay, there we go. Perspective view. And now we're going to twist and bend the torso. Yay! We go to all. Twist it like that. And the chest is going to bend forward and go side to side a little bit. And a little bit more twist at the chest. Now this swings forward. And bend the elbow just a little bit and twist. And now we're going to make the axe visible right now because we got to kind of pull it out a bit. A blow like this, you've started with your backhand, the left hand, near the butt, and you're sliding your hand down, so it's like oh, you know, choking up on it. We're going to worry about head position later. We need to rotate this just a little bit more because we need to get that away from the hip. Okay. Now we're going to pin the chest. And we're going to turn off the twist on there. We're going to give it a very basic, just general bending in the direction that we want to go. And then we're going to drag the hand into position. Actually, we need to... Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about it, we need to rotate this because it's... Oh, no. No. Dadgummit. No. Hold on. Yeah, we're gonna now... Oh. Okay. I'm going to twist it just a little bit less because we want to have room for the arm to actually... Yeah, now twist the hand side to side it, and now we're going to move it again a little bit more, and it's going to be from the side. Yeah, bring it up to here. Okay, we got to bring this out because that's... We want to chicken wing it. Okay. Now, bring that back over. We want that arm out, not tucked in. And let's bring that down. And then we're going to bend the fingers around it. So we bend the fingers down, and then we're going to twist them to better represent how they're doing that. And then bend there. Okay, actually, let's go ahead and bring the hand a little bit further back. That way. And let's run these like that. And unbend it a little bit. There. And then the thumb comes. And it'll be posing the head time and then posing the tail time. Okay, let's see that. No, not that way. That way. And then those thumbs laying up against the shaft of the axe. And only barely starting to curl. Because it's providing a lever. It's not holding to be a pivot. It's providing a lever to pivot around the forward hand. Anyway, let's go ahead and bend this thumb just a little bit here. Just enough to give it a bit. Yeah. And now it comes time for the head pose. And then we're gonna open his mouth. Actually, we're gonna tilt the head back a little bit more just to make it easier to open his mouth. Too far into the arm. Come back up. Yeah, there we go. And actually, let's zoom in on that jaw, because I think, yeah, it's still poking through the arm. So let's tilt the head back. And now we've got the tail to pose. There are several bones in the tail. And I misnamed the side-to-side and up-and-down poses. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start posing from tailbone 2. Simply because, excuse me, we want to keep the number 1 at the base pretty stiff. Because otherwise it'll start coming out from the really bizarre places. And then, let's see, put it up here. And then this one is going to bend down. And there we have the position for our tail. Now, next thing that we're going to do, we're going to unpin it all. We're going to make the tunic skirt visible because there's some things that we need to do to it. What we're going to do, we're going to check the right thigh and we see it's twisted 4.31. So the right thigh of the tunic skirt is negative 4.31. This really only works because there's no leg piece below. It's only got thigh and what's above. Okay, that one's 22.77. So this is negative 22.77. And it fits just a little bit better. Yes, there's a bit here where it's poking out, but that's not a big deal. And let's make those horns visible too. Now, here's the last question. How tall is he? Because we need to know how big he is. We need to get his scale right. Right now, this would be a 6'4". A 6'4". Okay, so pretty much he's at the right size. Now I'm going to be popping back into here real quick, because there's one last thing you need to choose before I take this in to start sculpting. And that's, you need to choose a base. The earlier figures I sculpted all had that just a simple disc base. Now they've got textures. So we have two different sets of bases. The first set is here. Now obviously the far left one here and the far right one here are sci-fi. Not really great for a fantasy barbarian Dragonborn. But you can see cobblestone and fancy tile, a blank base, rocky, wooden, and grass. And then here, yeah, there's a couple sci-fi grids, but there's also ancient tile, organic, gravel, cracked earth, magic circle, mixed, and volcanic/asteroid. Do any of those bases look good for you? I'm going beep, 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 beep. Yeah. Do any of those bases work for you? Bottom left on which one? This, the rocky, or the mixed terrain? Like I said, there's also cracked earth up, well, right there, and there's gravel, and yeah. Bottom left in the first set, the generic rocky terrain. Okay, I'm going to hide that and go back. And what we do here, file, import, base rocky, accept. Now, we're going to go to the front view first, and we're going to lower it until his feet are just barely in the rocky bits. Then we're going to put Ralph down. No, little buddy. No. Go. Shoo. Shoo, Fuzzbutt. Then we're going to go here, and we're going to get him pretty much centered properly on this base, which right now he looks centered, but he's actually a little off. Dude. Can pull him back a little bit, because that'll also have that toe not be passing through that front rock right in front of it, that back toe. And now, actually, let's rotate it. Okay, let's bring it around to here. And we're going to raise it up until it actually goes to the feet. Yeah, there we go. That way he's part of the figure. The base is part of the figure. We're going to have to zoom it back a little bit because it's going through that 1 foot. And over just a little bit. Again, same reason. Okay, now frame out. And it's time to export all this for sculpting on in ZBrush. So, first thing we do is we hide all the parts. Because it exports everything that's visible. We want these all separate. So, File, Export. We go to Broadcast Miniatures, New, DB bar. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. Export the body. File, export DB horns. File, export DB axe. Excuse me. And file, export DB tail. We are going to have a hole visible in the tunic with the tails poking out. It's not just going to be suddenly emerging from the tunic. File, export DB boot cuffs. Accept. File, export DB tunic. Accept. And file, export DB base. Export. And then we cut over to ZBrush. And we're going to start importing them all. Okay, so we import, starting off, we've got a meshes, free sculpt, broadcast, new, and there it is, DB bar. We load the body first. And draw it in and hit edit so we can rotate around and all that. Now we go to subtool, bring this up so we can see import at top and insert polymesh, import. The tail is going to be next. Insert polymesh, import tunic. Insert polymesh, import. Let's go with the horns next. Insert polymesh, import boot cuffs. Insert polymesh, import axe. And then insert polymesh, import base. Okay, and here we have them pre-sculpt. The next big question, before we really get into things, have you thought about, does he have, decorative only bracers just to show I'm manly, I got bracers? Or does he have bare forearms? And if he has bare forearms, do they have scales or fur? Sorry, wrong kind of bear. Anyway, we're going to go back up to the body. We're going to hide everything. Alright. And now we're going to shrink the mouse and smooth out the inner mouth. Okay. Now, being this is a blue dragon, we're going to use some movement. We're going to adjust the shape of the head slightly. Just a bit. Bit of a wider top snout. And then we're going to make sure we smooth out some areas that need it, like right here, directly underneath this, where the chest and the pectoral kind of warp a little bit. We're going to smooth that out. We're going to detail that and make it better in just a minute. And the same thing here, and this right here. Frame out. And it'll be time to move that plastic bag and get my tablet out. Yay. Now, we go here, go to geometry. We're going to subdivide it a couple times. Go to Dynamesh, 768, Dynamesh. And I forgot to delete lower. Okay, there we go. And then we're going to give it another level of subdivision. Oh, while I'm thinking about it, okay, now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of move in, zoom in close. And we're going to make that horn by using what's called the snake hook brush. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of pull from the dead center. We're going to shrink this brush a little, and we're going to pull up. And then coming over this way. And out. That's the nose horn. We're going to use move to kind of make it a little bit thicker around the base. We're then going to get the rake tool. We're going to drop that intensity quite a bit. And we're going to add in some, oh, too big. And then some grooves up the side to represent the texture of the horn. Okay. Now, we're going to use inflate, slightly smaller size than this, a little bit more than that, and intensity up a little bit, and we're going to inflate around the base of it. And then here. Then we're going to get the slash tool. Turn off lazy mouse. And reduce that intensity about 14, yeah. Actually, let's increase that intensity to about 18. And we're going to come around and draw a groove around where it's coming out of the snout. We definitely want this to look like something that's growing out of the flesh and not on top of the flesh. And right here, make that connection. There. He's got a horn coming from his snout. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to pull up his, let's pull up the horns. And we're going to move them up there. Now, first things first, we need to mesh smooth it. And we also need to go ahead and give it a polish. Okay, we're going to smooth out that. And here. And then we're going to use the move tool because the ears on a blue are actually shorter on that middle section than on the upper and lower sections. Then we're going to inflate along the front top and the bottom. and we're going to, then we switch to move. And what we got to do is we got to go ahead and we're going to move it back a little bit in both that direction and this direction. Okay, now we switch back to draw and move. And what we're going to do is we're going to move these into, in this case we're going to shrink this a bit. We're going to move it into there so it kind of blends into the brow. And we're going to put this down a bit, and then we're going to move it in. But the center one kind of blends in a bit with the cheekbone. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Pull it in and kind of give it a bit of a concave look. We want this to be like a blue. So in case you're wondering why I counted when I was shrinking the mouse, it's so I can then 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'll move this back to where it needs to be. So I can move this up. It's coming from there, this is coming from here, and this is coming from here. Okay. Now we're gonna, let's move that up. We're gonna smooth this out here, and here, and here. And the same thing over here, smooth it out. We're gonna frame out. And now we go up to subtool again. And we're going to, well actually before we go to subtool, we need to subdivide it again. That'll be good. And we're going to merge down. Always okay. We go to geometry and we hit Dynamesh again. Okay. Now we go in and we're going to smooth some of these areas. Right there. We want it to come straight from the cheekbones and the top of the jaw, but we're going to let it be unsmooth at the bottom there, because we want this to be pretty sharp. And we're going to use the slash tool and reduce that intensity quite a bit, and just kind of come in here and redraw the division there. We also can go ahead and erase that. Two little pock marks. Yeah, there we go. That is your blue head. We're going to put scales in that on later. One other thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and we don't need to worry about the butt because of the tunic, but we need to worry about back here. So we're going to inflate. We're going to make it bigger. And we're going to very carefully just kind of pull up this section right here. And then a little bit of smoothing. 1, 2, 3. Now here. And that's good. And then here we need to make sure we get a nice bulging . And there we go. And there we go. Frame out. Now, the next step is going to be getting that tunic fitted right. Because if you notice, there's some issues with its placement. We go back to move. And this time we're going to be a lot bigger on the move. We're gonna pull this out a little bit from the thigh. Then we're not gonna worry too much about the back here, but we are gonna worry a little bit about the sides, bringing them in and there, and then here. Okay, now what we do is we go ahead down to geometry. We subdivide it a few times until it's a couple 100,000. Delete lower. And now we bring this up to there and we merge down. We then dynamesh by holding control and dragging in the screen. And then we zoom back in. Let's smooth this out a bit. And we smooth out around where it is. Or the seam there. 1, 2, 3. And that includes the seam where the glutes kind of poke through. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then bring it up here. And here. Okay. Now we make the tail visible. And we're going to move some of it because that top is a little off center from where the rest of the tail is. Oh. Tail. Hey! Cut that out, fuzzbutt. Sorry, I had some issues. We're going to kind of move it over a little bit to make sure it stays centered down the spine. Then we're going to go to geometry and we're going to subdivide it a couple times. Delete lower. And merge down. We're going to dynamesh. But now, instead of smoothing out that seam, because he's wearing a tunic and that, instead, we're going to go to slash. And we're going to increase that to 15. And we're going to trace around the tail. Actually, no, we don't want to use this. What we want to use is seam 16. Then intensity 18. Now, which side? Do we go this way? No. We go this way. And come on down. You're the next contestant on the tail is right. There we go. That's the seam of the clothing around the... We're going to go ahead and add in this to... little seam that way. We're going to draw on the rest of the tunic in just a minute. Next question. Does he have breeches? Is he bare-legged? Or does he have like baggy, poofy pants? While you're answering that, I'm going to add on the tunic, and I'm going to assume that he's going to be somewhat short-sleeved. So we're going to hide the jaw and the head so that we can access the shoulders easier. We're also going to hide the forearm, hands. Now, Mark, you were talking about polygroups earlier. This is an example of polygroups. I am hiding certain polygroups. And while I'm thinking about it, we're going to display properties double-sided so I can see the polygons easier. Bare-legged, okay. That means we're going to be adding some scales to it later. Now we go back to standard. We're going to standard for this. And we're going to draw on his tunic, or his collar and sleeves for his tunic. Local shift of -100, and we're going to come around this way. And we're also going to make it kind of like a, not a tank top, but where like the sleeve, it has the space for a wide-shouldered sleeve, but it doesn't actually have the sleeve. Once again, you want to show the guns. And coming around back here. After we do this, we're going to be adding on the belt. Okay, we're going to have to erase that in a second. One thing about the ZBrush is when you change where you're drawing from, wherever you most recently drew from is the new center of rotation for the screen. Not the figure, the screen. Alright, now we're going to fill this in, make it pretty low. Okay, and we're going to come up this way. And now we're going to go in, we're going to shrink this quite a lot, and Control-Alt and erase that line there, that little dot there. Smooth out this line right here. And make everything visible again. And now we go to Subtool, we go to Extract, 0.02, Accept, and then we draw to get rid of the masking there, we draw to get rid of the masking on the body. And next up is we're going to turn on transparent so we can make sure we're getting everything. Go to Move, because we've got a nice large move size here. We're going to shrink it to about there. Now, geometry. Dynamesh of 256 to get a nice edge here, but also reduce the polygon count quite a lot. And we smooth. And get this. And getting clear on this, making sure it's all smoothed in. And now we go up to Subtool. I'm going to merge down, but first, yeah. Merge down. And then Dynamesh. Now, we're going to shrink this a bit. And here like that. 1, 2, 3. Then here, up and down. Okay, and then finally this side over here. I'm going to come around. Okay. Now we're going to zoom out a bit. And we can see that now it looks like he's wearing a tunic. But he needs a belt. And this is too detailed for that belt. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert another polymesh, import another copy of the body. And this one we're going to, from here, we're going to Dynamesh at 128. We're going to make this visible just so that we can then take him with transparency and pull out the back a bit to go over the tail. Shrink this a bit, bring it in, bring it in. We want to kind of pull this in just a bit so that it's very clearly passing through and we don't have a full amount of, yeah. Okay, now subdivide until we got a couple 100,000, or that'll do. And we're going to draw there. Nope, wrong direction. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and hide the body. Let's make sure we got a nice positioning there. We're going to grow that mask. That's good. That's a nice thickly. Make this visible, and then we're going to turn off transparency, and we're going to extract at 0.02, accept, draw, and then delete the extra body. So now we're going to use the move tool to get this into place. Okay, but that's our belt. Now we're going to go to geometry. We're going to Dynamesh it at 256. And then we're going to Z remesh, adaptive size half, Z remesh. And then we're going to do this until we have a nice little, let's say 3,000 or 4,000. How's it going up? How is it going up? Okay, let's drop this to 50. There we go, one more. Okay, because we wanted this to be mostly flat. Now we're going to subdivide it a couple times. And we're going to add on the buckle. Dead center of the waist. That's on this one. Yeah. And let's make sure that our depth is 0, not negative 20. Put this close to center as we can and draw until we have the buckle end be about the same size as the rest of the belt. Okay, now we're going to move, make this bigger. Pull it in that way. And there we go. Now, we split off unmasked parts because this is a different resolution than the belt. Geometry, subdivide 1, 2, delete lower. And the belt, we're gonna merge down. We're not gonna worry about blending it until the very end because it's just one item. So there's his belt and kilt, and then of course he's got boots. Now the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna be tweaking his hands. Okay, so to do that we need his axe in place. After we do that, we're going to detail his musculature, then start adding in wrinkles and scales. Wrinkles and scales, wrinkles and scales. Because most of our geometry is there now. Do you want a belt pouch, bag, both, multiple, backpack? Well, backpack's a little late, but anything dangling from your belt? Oh, we also need to make the bracers. We're thinking about that, though. We need to look at these hands. Alright, with the hands, one thing that we're going to do is with the inflate tool set down to 11. That's usual size. And yeah. I also need to know what you want, how decorated you want your axe. Do you want it to be just a basic cold iron killing machine axe, or do you want it to be like fancy and look enchanted? Small pouch. Okay. While we're take a brief pause, go back up to here. No, not here. We want there we go. Belt stuff. Pouch. Left or right hip? I would suggest this hip because it'll be easier to get to in paint. The right hip. Okay. And then we're going to have to move it because that's considerably off kilter. Let's bring it back this way. Bring it over here. Here's the big question. Because of all that happened last game, will your character have a phobia of bag of holding? There we go. That's good. Okay, blood and gore is painted on. Split unmasked parts. And subdivide. And what we're going to do, we're going to just do that just to give us a change. Okay. Oh, fuzz butts are meowing. I was joking. And then smooth that out. That's those little tendons in the back that a lot of people have in the back of the hands, like I do. And then knuckle 1, knuckle 2, and then we just, keep our little hand pattern. And then beer, 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 beer. Frame out. You can already see how much more realistic that right hand is than the left now. Carlton, what are you doing? No, no fuzzbutt. And now come around. Gonna inflate the side here just a little bit to get it off the thing. And then knuckle 1, knuckle 2. We're gonna once again get those. And a swoop across both. Frame out. And there we go. Now we're gonna have to go back in with slash and divide those the first two fingers there because they didn't quite look right. And this needs to be 11. Okay, there we go. Now, the last thing is his bracers is the last geometry we need to add to him. Then it's all detailing work for the next... Oh, only half an hour left. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and... Oh, hush, Furball. The reason we're doing this is because we're going to then use masking, inverse, visibility, hide point, frame. And now I can basically select the arm and make the bracers. I'm assuming you want like strongman bracers where they've got like studs and a rim. Something like that. Okay. Trace. Get rid of this. That. And get rid of that. Now, once again, frame out. Select the forearm. Hide the forearm, that, and the hand. Zoom. Select it all. Masking. Inverse. Visibility, hide point. And then, once again, we're gonna select his forearm. Well, get rid of some of that. There we go. That's good. Now we go to extract that. Draw. Draw. Now we're going to merge down. No. What is the matter, Furball? And what we're going to do is we're going to, under geometry, we're going to Z-remesh. Because, oh no, we're not Z-remesh, sorry. Forgot to do one thing before we Z-remesh. We forgot to keep groups, because one thing it does when you do this is it makes the portions like that a separate group. So now we're going to Z-remesh. Okay, now we're going up to here where it's got the curve functions, frame mesh. What that does is that gives us where we're going to be putting our rim. So we go to curve tube and click once there. That's good. We go to subtool and split unmasked parts or points. Do the same thing here. Split unmasked points. Split unmasked points and oh no, that didn't work. That last one did not work. Did the others work all the way around? Yeah, they did. Okay, I see what happened. Yeah. So we're now going to click over here, get rid of them. Geometry. Undo keep groups. Z-remesh. Okay, now we're going to try, well, no, curve functions, frame mesh. Nothing happened. Okay. Let's see what happens if we Dynamesh. No, it didn't work. Polygroups. Oh, I know what we need to do. Not polygroups, autogroups. No. Oh, hell. Yep. Okay, there we go. Split unmasked parts. Split unmasked parts. Okay, now we're going to click here to get rid of them. This is a bit more than I expected. I'm going to do geometry, going to polygroups. Okay, let's. Geometry, subtool. Let's hide this and this. Okay, that's why. Delete. Okay. Delete. Okay. Now this. Let's. Okay. I'm going to select just that and split masked parts. Okay. And now from here we're going to frame mesh. And no, it's still not. What the hey? Alright, that does it. Come on. There we go. And now we are going to go to polygroups, autogroups, and now go back to geometry and Z-remesh it. And now, what happens if we go back to frame mesh? There we go. And we're going to split unmasked parts, points. Okay, and click there. All right. That gives us our bracers. We're going to merge them all down. Okay, that's our bracers. We're going to dynamesh them, or we're going to subdivide them first. Dynamesh them at 768. Dynamesh. Okay, and now we're going to layer, change stroke to drag dot, change the alpha to alpha 35. Which one is it? No, it's alpha 48. Yeah. And increase it to intensity 100. Because that's what we're going to use to make our studs on the bracers. We're going to make this large enough and put these little studs around the center band. Okay, and then no, make this one a little bit closer, and then one here. Okay. Sorry those bracers took so long. Now, some of you who are watching weren't here for the beginning of the show where I announced tomorrow night there will be a special broadcast. I will be doing a roundtable with Mia Bensian and Miguel Zavela, aka MZ4250. We will be discussing, among other things, growth as an artist, where we started and how we got to where we are now, and where we want to be in the future. Okay. So this is currently the current state. It's time. All the geometry is there. It's time for detailing. But the question is, what detailing do we start with? Do we start with scales? Do we start with wrinkles? Do we start with detailing the axe? Excuse me, hiccups. Where do we start? Ugh. And there we go. Let's well, the bracers are pretty much done. There's not much more because they're smooth metal. Let's go ahead and start adding on scales. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to change layer back to a flat round. Alpha 14. And we're going to shrink this. And we're going to change from drag rect to freehand. And then we're going to drop the intensity down. And we're going to basically draw on our scales. There's my stylus. No. It was me pondering. Alright, one of the things we need to do, okay, we need to not increase the size, but increase the intensity. And we need to give this a level of mesh smoothing. And there we go. And we're just going to kind of... No. Change this to alpha 11. No. Alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3. Alpha 12, that's it. Just kind of bring these down to represent the larger scales on the cheekbone. And then we're going to come around up above the nostril. No, it's too large for these particular scales. I'm going to drop that from 67 down to 58. Because when you increase the brush size, you're also increasing the size of the how far it sticks out. Oh. Basically, you want the brows to be kind of heavy and scaly. We're not going to draw on every scale because at the scale of a typical tabletop miniature, that's way too much. It won't print and it won't look good. So what we do is we draw on the larger scutes mostly. And in the case of the snout, we're going to kind of draw on we're also going to go ahead and draw on scales on the lips. Oh. Oh, I know what the problem is here. I forgot to turn off back facing. Anti-auto masking backface mask. And then just kind of I'll cut that out. And then beer. Burp. Burp. And I'll kind of just do a brief smooth over these just to there we go. Frame out. That's our head scales. Now we're going to draw on scales onto the back of the neck. I will say that it's a very good chance that we may not get everything done tonight. This is a rather detailed variant sculpt, and we got started a little late, so. Let's get this in. Making these a little bit. Yeah. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, one thing we need to do, let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. We're going to kind of draw on. Actually, no. We're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it this way. And we're basically drawing on some heavier plates in the back of the neck. And we're going to assume that he's got those down his back too, even though he doesn't get an armor class bonus. Yeah, Dragonborn don't get an armor class bonus, they only get resistance to their element. Yay. And so, I'm sorry, I suddenly got quiet. My brain is going, scales, lots of scales to sculpt. And it's gotten kind of piffed. But anyway, and this should be the last head plate. There. That gives a nice little armor look. Now I'm going to make some of these neck scales on this side, like we did back over there. Okay, and then... Oh. Ow! As my wrist just popped. So you can see what I did with the scales on his head. It came out pretty nicely for the head and neck. I'm not going to put scales on his hands because they'll be just too small. But I'm going to put some on his thighs and outer and front of his shins, as well as down his shoulders and arms. So we're going to make this a little bit bigger, and we're going to draw on some of these scutes, as they're called. Okay. And And then what else we're gonna do? We're gonna do something different for the for some of the parts of this arm because I had an idea. But yeah, we're gonna put on these scutes up here, and I hear a cat yowling. Hush up, Fuzzball. What is the matter? Uh, Something has scared my cat. What is the matter? I'm gonna put you down. Get on down, Fuzzball. Go. Shoot. Anyway. And then down the shins, we're going to do something similar to what we did on the top of the head. And there. And then here. 1, 2. And here. One, two. And then here. And kind of coming up around like that. Then we go ahead and come down here. Here. Some of these larger scutes. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing on this side, but there's not going to be as many because the tilt is going a little bit lower. Definitely has a much more reptilian look to him now. But now we're going to switch to Slash. Then we're going to switch to Orb Cracks 2. Turn off Lazy Mouse. Reduce that intensity to 10 and shrink it quite a bit. This is going to be one of those subtle effects. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw on a grid pattern. Going to represent the regular scales, or the regular heavier scales, like what would be found on an alligator. And that these are just additional scutes. And it's going to kind of fade under. And that's good. We're going to do the same thing to the underside of the neck, but we're going to do it as just straight up lines. There. Just enough to give it more of an impression than anything else. And apparently there's some kind of big IKEA sale going on. I just heard a commercial for it from the other room. And yeah. And we make sure to get up like that. Continuing these scale impressions. Not all of them will print, especially not on an FDM. But enough will to give the impression where they need to be. Now it's already 9:22. It's going to be 9:30 soon, which means it'll be time to go ahead and head on out. Because I really can't stay too much late, not like I used to. But I will get this done, and I can't guarantee it'll be printed in time for Saturday, but I can try. Simply because the larger version will require a lot more time to print. And then bring it up like that. Okay. And then I'll be doing it down the tail. Alrighty. I'll be honest, I had a lot of practice doing Dragonborn when I was doing the figures for Danny H's Lost Dragons Kickstarter. You know, I did the various Dragonborn for that project. Not all of them. There were a couple of the later Dragonborn that were a different style than what I did. Okay, I'll frame out. And yeah, very definitely a reptilian look. Now, when you print, we zoom out. If we print large, looks like, you can usually see what details we'll print. When we print large, those will almost certainly come out. But when we print the small one, the scutes will be visible, but odds are against, odds are against anything more than just a faint hint of the others, which is really all we need. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add in some plates on the tail. Across that top ridge. And what we're going to do is we're going to do this as... Oop, wrong one. I need to be back on layer. And smooth that. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That. 1, 2, 3. Smooth that. 1, 2, 3. And you can see it's turning into those little plates up down the top. And then, alright, smooth that. 1, 2, 3. There. 1, 2, 3. There. Smooth. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's that. Little scutes coming down the center. And we go back to Orb Cracks 2. We're going to shrink it again. And then we're going to start drawing diagonal lines down the side and fading out as we go down. And then okay. And there we go. Frame. Frame again. And that's the current state. We still need to add in the wrinkles on the clothing and the boots, and then full detail on the axe. But it is already 9:28. So I hate to do this, but I am going to have to call this an evening. And don't forget, tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is going to be a special broadcast. Tomorrow night, I am going to have Mia Bensian and Miguel Zavela and maybe a couple others, I don't know. and we're going to be doing a roundtable about growth as an artist and other things like that, and we'll be answering questions that you provide in this chat. We're going to try and get people to advertise it on the various social media that it matters, so. Oh, and hello, Board. I'm sorry I didn't see you. Now, Robert, I will see you on Saturday, and like I said, I may or may not have the figure actually printed in time. It's simply because, it's already Thursday. Friday, Saturday. The double-sized figure is going to take a lot more time to print. And then, of course, time to prime and let it dry. So, while I'm thinking about it, I better go ahead and save this. Save as BB Body. And now, does anyone have any questions about what I did and why I did it when I was sculpting the figure today? Anything you want to say about how I did it? Any questions? Anyone? Yay, nay, maybe? Holy crap, what all was that? What are you doing this for? Is this anything else? And he says, okay, no problem. And I guess what's going to happen now is I'm just going to go ahead and do my usual hold up my hand so I can do a lag check. And as I do, I'm going to count from 5 to 1. When I get to 1, I'm going to say something goofy and go, and then when I see these I see on the screen, then that's when I'm going to stop the broadcast. Okay, that's to prevent, the whole lag thing. So that's going to be a 5, 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. This is not a funny, goofy thing. PTSD is not just for combat veterans. Bye.